Hello and welcome to the Comedians Paradise. This is the podcast where we speak to comedians, comedy promoters, and clowns from across the comedy world. Now, today's guest is, should I say, the Glasgow equivalent of Alan Sugar combined with Don Ward, Mitzi Shaw, and the Mothership all into one in the Glasgow comedy scene. He's a man who's helped Jack Trainer conquer the Edinburgh Fringe. He's a man who's bringing a lot of joy to a lot of comics and a lot of comedy fans in Glasgow. Please welcome Chris Conway.
Well, I think that's the biggest intro I've ever had. I don't even think my mum's that nice to me.
So, in regards, so for anyone that doesn't know about you, if they're based, a lot of people that listen here are probably based in London or in the southwest of England. Tell us a bit about who you are and like how you got into comedy.
Yes, I'm Chris. I'm the owner of Blackfriars in Glasgow. And then I've got another 13 businesses with my business partners kind of in the hospitality sector. And Blackfriars Basement is Glasgow's oldest comedy club. I think it started in 1994. Done really well. We're kind of various local Glasgow comedians got their first kind of start. And then we took over it around about 3 years ago. They kind of shut down over COVID. It was one of the businesses that kind of didn't sadly make it out of COVID. It kind of shut down throughout COVID, and I think it was shut for about a year after until we took it. And it's kind of, to me, it's the perfect setup for a comedy club. You know, we've got a bar upstairs that opens 7 days a week, does all sorts of stuff that every type of bar does. And then downstairs in the basement, we've got a nice little intimate comedy club, 130 people. Really tight to the stage, all theatre style seating, nothing, no fanciness, no pizzazz. It's just rows of seats and really tight to the stage, getting right and close to the comedians, you know, with a nice little low ceiling and all that. So that's kind of where we're at, and when we kind of started Blackfriars, I think we knew that it did comedy. We were very aware of the comedy. I used to come to shows here years ago, but it was something that kind of, when we first took it, was kind of, we were working more as a nightclub, because it's also got a nightclub license. It's licensed at 3 a.m. So when we were initially building it, we were like, oh, it'll be a nightclub. That's where we'll make most money. Nightclubs make more money than comedy clubs. And we kind of were putting on, maybe in the first 6 months, we were kind of only doing a show maybe 2-3 times a month. And kind of from there, the interest started to build. People are coming back, wanting to book shows. So we're now doing, I'd say on average, we're probably doing about 50 shows a month now or something across the month.
50?
So it's 50, yeah. It's intense. So we've got the way we kind of set it up, and the way I kind of set it up was, I'm not a promoter. That's not where my strengths lie. My strengths lie in hospitality and managing businesses and stuff. So we use promoters to run our nights. We use comedians to set up their own nights. We'll run one show ourselves every month that we kind of change up every so often. But likes of Merchant City Comedy and Fresh Comedy, they're people that they go out, organise the lineups, get everybody in, and they do promote their own shows, and we give them the space, you know, and then kind of go from there.
Okay. And when you first started doing more and more shows, what are mistakes that you made that you learnt from when you first took over Blackfriars?
Well, the first thing we did, we started trying to do our own shows on a Friday night. We had Friday, I think we called it Friday Night Live or something stupid like that, you know what I mean? And it was just a classic mixed bill show, host, opener, new act, headliner. And we were trying to promote it and trying to push it ourselves, and probably getting things wrong, getting the vibe wrong, not setting the room up right, not getting creating the atmosphere. The tech wasn't right. The system was set up to do club nights, you know what I mean? It hadn't really been adapted for comedy. The lighting wasn't right. And kind of spending time then with the headliners that were coming in. I remember one of the first headliners that we had, the guy who done our first ever night, was Gary Little, who sadly passed away a couple of weeks ago. He was our first headliner. I remember sitting with him at the back of the room after he'd finished the show, and I was like, "Oh, what do you think, Gary? What do you do?" And I think we sat for about an hour and a half, and he just told me everything that was wrong with the club.
Oh.
He's like, you need to do this, you need to do this. He's like, Chris, I started in this room. He goes, it deserves to be better. So we spent I then went away, spent a lot of time chatting to comedians, other promoters, going and seeing other clubs, getting out and seeing what they're doing, and kind of adapting the room, changed all our tech, changed all our lighting, changed the way we set up, even just the way we set up the chairs and stuff, you know what I mean? Just to kind of make the corny as it is, the customer journey from when they come in the front door to how they get down the stairs to how they get to their seat, having everything set up so they're getting ready for a night of comedy.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you made. I spoke to someone on a podcast, but the podcast didn't go out. But there's a guy that made a really good point in terms of a lot of people think when they're starting producing shows, the show starts when the show starts. But he says it's such a basic point, but he tells me the show starts as soon as people walk in.
Yeah, the show starts for me when they come in my front door at the pub upstairs. You know, they're meeting the door stewards. They're maybe getting a drink upstairs before they come down, or they can get the drink down here as well. And it's all those interactions they have along the way is all part of the show. And it's like anything. If they have a run-in with a grumpy doorman at the start, it puts them in a bad mood. So if they're in a slightly bad mood, they're like, that doorman was grumpy or he wasn't very friendly. They're not in the right state of mind to then go and enjoy their night out. And if you have like one bad memory of something, that's usually your underriding memory of the entire night. Because negative things always stick in people's mind more than positives. That's just the way life works, I think, most of the time.
And how much easier does your show get if you provide the right things like beforehand? Because I've run a few small gigs, and the best ones I've done, and I've learnt so much from them, is that the people you used to work with were tremendous characters, which really helped the experience of running a show more comfortable for the people as soon as they came in. They were relaxed, they were comfortable, and the rest of it was easy.
Yeah, I think like the big thing I kind of like put across to my team is, you know, whether it's the comedians are coming in, whether it's Kevin Bridges has come in, or a 5-minute open spot's come in and it's their first time performing. I think we treat them all exactly the same. They all get treated. They're the talent. They're the ones that are coming down to do the show. Treat them all well. Don't fangirl over like the bigger ones. You know what I mean? Just treat them like a normal person, but give them the attention they deserve. And then something that when I took Jack out to LA when he was doing the Comedy Store thing, and when we went to the Comedy Store, we went to like the Improv. Everyone you met at those clubs was an aspiring comedian. Like the door security was a comedian, the bar staff were a comedian, the sound tech was a comedian, and they all work there because they want to get into the scene. So it's something like my sound tech was already the guy that works here full time. He's a comedian doing like 5-minute spots, kind of working his way up. And when I came back from LA, I was like, right, we need to dive into that more. So like now my showrunners that like check tickets and get people to their seats and like help with the crowd, like maintaining the crowd, they're all comedians, or they're involved in the scene in some way because they understand how a show should run, and it's also they're able to interact with the customers, and they can be funny when they interact with the customers. You know what I mean? When everyone comes into a comedy show, be it the public or whatever, everyone feels like they need to make a joke, I think.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, everyone's like kind of wanting to have a laugh, like with like the public and stuff, because I'm going to the comedy show, and then every little line becomes its own little thing. So I think if you've got people on the door that are checking tickets, if they can make that person laugh, it's already started that part of them going to enjoy their night.
And how do you make sure that they're not only the comedians, but they're the right kind of comedians? Because not all comics I come across are quite engaging people. They're more happy to sit in a corner of the room and write their jokes. And when off stage, they're incredibly timid. But then there's others that are the life and soul of the party. How do you pick the ones that are going to bring the right vibe?
So I'd done I'd actually posted in like one of the comedy forums up here to get like showrunners and stuff, and there was a lot of applications. And it was a case of chatting with the ones that I didn't know personally. I'd speak with my sound tech or whatever. I'm like, what's this person like? What will they gel with the team type of vibe? And then it was just I sat down with them each for like an hour or so to chat to them and kind of just get the vibe off them. And if they can sit and speak to me for an hour or 30 minutes or however long it took, they should be all right. But it was also a case of there might have been other people that I'd be like, well, I just know from them off stage that they're not going to thrive in that role.
Oh,
And it's
okay.
not a bad thing about them. It's just some people, as you say, just aren't set up for that. They're not set up like customer service is a completely different thing than doing stand up, but it's got similar skills. But yeah, if you're not outgoing and chatty off stage, it just ain't gonna work.
Is there comedians? You've had all sorts of comedians from the top to very bottom, but for those that with a big following, are there some that you know that you come across that also, even though they don't need to, do a lot of customer service in terms of their fans? Because I know, like, I met Milton Jones on the Tube, and like, I mean, he's good that he's better, but he is on stage character, very awkward, very a bit weird, but off stage he's very friendly, quite chatting, quite funny, like really charismatic. But you wouldn't
Yeah,
expect that seeing his act. Do you get that with a lot of some of the big names that they have amazing customer service as well as being good comics?
I think it's like the one that I kind of chat to a few of them about it all the time. Like Raymond Mearns does like his wee solo shows. He's doing like Live and Unleashed at the moment in here, which is basically all for his clips and going out on his Instagram. And I was standing outside the venue one day chatting to him, and it's just now he had done like he'd been on the Limmy show. I think he'd been on Ramsey Nesbitt and stuff as well. So he's got like a lot of like he's out there in the public, and everyone knows who he is up in Scotland. I think we were still chatting for maybe 10 minutes outside, and he must have been stopped about 20 times for people to take photos. And he's just and he's the smiliest guy. He's having laughs with people. He's giving them wee one-liners and stuff. And I remember like at the end when we're going inside, I goes, "Does that not do your nothing?" I goes, "How do you get anything done in life? How do you get like out and about?" And he's like, "Well, if they didn't stop me, Chris," he goes, "I wouldn't be doing my job well because I wouldn't be famous, and they wouldn't know who I am." He goes, "So the fact that they do is a good thing." And then he's like, and I've got to give them the time because they've given me their time by watching my stuff or buying a ticket to my show. He goes, so if they commit time to me, I commit time back to them. And it's like, you get other ones that will be, you can see that it's maybe a bit harder for them. They're maybe not as outgoing as someone like him. But I think that making that effort with a fan is just, it's going to, you always say that old saying of like, don't meet your heroes because they might turn out to be bastards or whatever.
Yes.
You would never want that, but I suppose some if it comes across that way, you're just people are going to stop following them. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
it's
yeah.
the ones that actually do spend time with them, get the pictures and stuff and all that. It's great for the people have like a, especially now with social media, people always have an ownership over people that they follow. They like know so much about their lives because of podcasts, because of Instagram updates. You know what I mean? They know exactly what a comedian's doing now.
Yeah, that's the thing that I had from Richard Villa. I interview a lot of characters on the podcast, and
Yeah,
Richard Villa, he's a former human trafficker, drug dealer. But he says, with the council culture, you got to say who you are, like, yeah, because there are no secrets.
yeah, 100%. Like it's just you've because it's like so much like you see them in the crowd and the customers and they chat to people and they're like they can be telling stories to the comedians or whatever and they're like they already know that and they're like and they will like come back and like oh no didn't you do that for dinner the other night and you're like oh my god they know absolutely everything about your life. Like the fandom is like the I suppose it all goes back to that Richard Gadd thing, you know what I mean? It's like man people can get like a bit crazy but you've got to give the fans time to an extent.
But I don't know how I deal with what Richard Gadd faced with a stalker, or Raymond Burns. How would you deal with a stalker? I'm sure he's had a few stalkers. I'm sure he has.
Yeah. Like because obviously like quite a few like Stuart Mitchell that does like he's kind of he's probably our biggest ticket seller. He does like his own solo shows and then does Stuart Mitchell and Friends, which he's kind of putting in here every Friday and Saturday next year. Where we'll be doing like 5 shows over the weekend. But he was good pals. Like he came up in the scene with Richard Gadd, and I remember after the show came out, and I asked him about it, and he went, and I was like, "Is that all true?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah, pretty much." I was like, "Jesus Christ." I was like, "You ever had that Stuart?" And he's like, "No, I never made it that big."
Whoa. But yeah, God, but in a lot of you hear a lot of the bringer shows in London, and I reckon some of the people who they'll be like, "Great, I have an audience member coming to the show."
It's yeah, and it's like there's been people in here whenever like especially the ones that I find that are big on TikTok as opposed to other forms of social media. They get like real like there's people in the audience and it's like it's one of my major problems I think with modern day comedy is because comedians put out crowd work clips because they can't burn their material. Totally get it. But then people just assume that's what a comedy show is because that's what they've seen on TikTok or that's what they've seen on Instagram, and they try and interact with the comedian the whole show. And it's like there's people like wanting to have conversations with them, and they're like, you're like, the comedians will generally say, "Look, I'm at my work, Ken. You know what I mean? Give me a minute."
How many times have they used the sailors? Like there's a heckle put down which I've seen Jimmy Carr do and Jimmy O do, where it says, "I don't go to your work and knock the sailors' cocks out your mouth." How many times have you heard of that put down?
Oh, so many. That or any sort of variation. The prevalent one I get most of the time is like, "Oh, I'm at my work here." You know what I mean? I'm trying to do my job or something like that. You know what I mean? Just like that kind of really simple one. If you're Dan Connell, he just actually posted this morning about it. He kicked somebody out of his crowd work show in here. I think it's on like 2.5 million views or something. And he just he just shouts at the guy because Darren's a bit off the wall. That's the style, you know. And he's just like, "Get out!" The guy's wife ends up staying. It's like, he's like, "Oh, you can stay in. You're fine. He just needs to go." And it's like 2.5 million views for like kicking some guy out because he was steaming. Well, he wasn't steaming. He was just too lively for the show.
How do you deal with it as like with the bar stuff and like your organisation when you have all of these nutcases or these oddballs, or some of them can be a bit nuts? I know that even the small gigs that I run, it was a heckle night and maybe it was a bit mad, but Andy Zapp, he's a great comedian, great guy. He put down the heckler and was being a bit polite and said, "Listen, no hard feelings, hope all is good." But this guy just got really rude. "I don't want to know, fuck off, fuck off." And then he got up and tried to get in a fight with Andy, and me and a couple of guys had to separate both of them. Now, how did you deal with that? I mean, with you got 120 people in, you got all sorts there.
So we have the beauty and the curse of our venue is it's really tight. So if you're sitting on one side and someone's heckling over that side, I'm not getting to that person. There's no physical way I get to that person in the middle of a set without massively destroying the set, you know what I mean? So we kind of have the discussion with like the comedians and stuff on stage, like before they go on, how they specifically want it dealt with. Now, if it's the headliner, 9 times out of 10, they're like, "Just leave me to it." They're like, "We'll give you the eyes or we'll do whatever to let you know that we want them out." But I think the beauty of the Glaswegian audience is Glasgow's a funny city and Glasgow's quite a hard city, but there's a real like good basic humour about it, you know what I mean? So if someone's being wide and being obnoxious, the audience will be quick enough to tell them to shut up as well. But I think most of the times we'll try and spot someone early. I've got my showrunners that kind of like manage the shows. They'll gauge everybody when they come in. We'll try and remove people on the breaks. If we know that someone's try and get them out before they become a problem. Because you can't remove people during the show, because then if you do, you end up, like as you say there, where you're basically fighting somebody to get them out, like dragging them out, which is not good for the person on stage. But obviously sometimes it just needs to be done.
Do you have any mad moment that could have ruined the gig but was turned around and actually made the night even better?
So just before the Fringe, we were doing it was like July or something. So we had, I think it was a comedy night we've got on a Sunday, one of our monthly nights called Merchant City Comedy, kind of mixed bill show. And there was a Canadian act who I for the life of me can't remember his name. But he had kind of come over because he was doing the Fringe. He was doing like a wee bit of spots just to kind of get his legs and that, find out the Scottish audience. And he started by doing jokes on the Catholic Church.
Ooh.
Now in Glasgow, that's going to go 50-50. It's a split city. But he was doing it, and it was nothing detrimental. And he grew up in the Catholic Church, and it was his perception on it from growing up and stuff. And it was all very tame stuff compared to what you'd hear in Glasgow. But some woman in the back was giving it, "Oh, you're doing easy comedy. Why are you attacking Catholics? You're doing easy comedy." Just kept shouting. And she was quite actually next to the sound booth. I was doing the sound tech that night. And I kind of went out and I was like, "You need to keep quiet, give her a wee shush and that." She's like, sorry. And then she just started then shouting, "Oh, what about Muslims? Why are you not attacking them?" And he's like, I'm not attacking. He goes, "I'm not attacking the Catholic Church," because he then starts interacting with her. He goes, I grew up a Catholic, so I can do jokes about that because I understand it. He goes, I didn't grow up a Muslim. I don't understand it. I can't make jokes about it. He goes, I don't have any knowledge base about it. I don't know about it. And then, so I went out again. I was like, well, you really need to calm down. And then she then came out with a racial slur about it. About
Ooh.
why. And I was like, okay, now you're going. We just kind of walked out. He had filmed the whole thing on his phone. He had set his phone up at the back, pretty much to record like his set and stuff. Just kind of, it was never supposed to, any of it was supposed to go out. But he ended up getting a great clip out of it that kind of boosted his ticket sales for his Fringe show and stuff and everything. He had a great time. He's like, this has worked out great.
Whoa,
So
okay.
out of the badness can always come positivity. You know what I mean? There can always be good bits out of it, I suppose.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Have you seen her back at any shows?
No, surprisingly not. She was most upset when I got her upstairs. She's like, I don't understand why I can't shout out. And I was like, because it's in there. It's like on the rules. I was like, you were warned. And she's like, oh, no, I just thought I could shout out because I didn't like, enjoy his comedy. I was like, no.
With comedy audiences and like building a comedy club, I think one of the things that often a misunderstanding between acts and promoters, and acts don't always appreciate the time and effort that promoters put into putting on a good show. Now, you run a huge operation with so many shows during the week. What do comedians need to understand from your side as someone that runs a great comedy club within the city of Glasgow, like the effort, the time, and all the things that you do to make sure the show's good, that needs to be, remembered by comics?
Yeah, so I think like we took the place and then we kind of were like, as I say, we were kind of looking more at a nightclub aspect for it when we first started, and we were like, nightclubs are dying. So we kind of flipped fully into the comedy. And what we kind of done here is we spent a lot over the time, like kind of upgrading the lighting, upgrading the sound system, the tech, to probably the point of we've got the best tech set up I think in Glasgow. Not to like put the other clubs down, I just think we've spent more money and because we're newer than those two, they maybe don't need to upgrade just now. I don't know, but their stuff still works or something. But we spend that but the thing, and then what we kind of, my ethos and how I kind of run the club is we do our deal with people's really simple and really straightforward. I do 0 hall hire and I do 0 ticket split because so anything that a comedian or promoter makes in the door goes to them and I make my money on the bar. Because I know clubs across the country or whatever, they'll do like a 70-30 split or something, or an 80-20 or whatever. Or they'll take a hall hire fee to cover like the tech. We provide all that as a kind of, you get that for free. And for me, it's kind of, I can build a nice club, I can decorate it well, I can have all the lights and all the sound, but if the comedians and the promoters aren't here on stage telling jokes, I've just got a really nice room with no people in it. So my expectation of comedians is just put on the best show and make people laugh and promote the hell out of it. You know what I mean? Like, because it's in their interest to fill the room because they get all the money.
What do you often see from comics that might put you off from booking them when you?
Well, there's so many things. No. So what we'll tend, I'll really look at into like their history. If it's a promoter or something that's wanting to run like a mixed bill show or something, I'll look at their history and what they've done, where they've ran shows, where they've promoted shows, kind of get a gauge of what their numbers were like. Because because it's such a variety of shows, if someone comes to a Blackfriars show on a Monday night and there's 5 people in it, that can actually affect my show that's on the Saturday night, because the people that come on the Monday night, they don't think, oh, I was at such and such promoted by such and such. They're like, I was at a Blackfriars basement show and it was terribly attended, or the comedy wasn't very good. So it affects, one night can affect the entire lineup. So it's making sure that they get, it's that expectation of they book the right acts, they book the right people. I'll maybe tell them, give my opinion on acts or whatever and say, this person's maybe not right, they're maybe not ready for that slot. Or, I don't want that person in my venue. And then just kind of making sure that, like, they need to want, like, the thing I always say, especially the young promoters, is they need to love comedy, but at the end of the day, they need to make money. That's what everyone's in the game for. That's what your life's like, sadly, about, is you need to make money to live. So if they want to run a night that they're happy to run at a loss, it's not going to be a successful night. So especially with the young acts, I always try and drive, like, you need to treat this like it's a business. Your night is a business, you need to promote it in the ability that you're going to make money, because you can then reinvest that into booking a bigger act, a bigger headliner, and you can make your next show better, and you can then snowball that on so you then get a much better night.
Okay. And how often do you see that not appreciated by acts?
Do you know, I've been quite lucky. I've got like a kind of fresh comedy, which is like a kind of Monday new material night with Roddy Gordon. That's been going nearly as long as we have. It's our longest running show, and there's not many shows that have come in and aren't still here. I think there's maybe one or two shows where that we don't host anymore, and it's just the time had run out on them. They weren't pushing it, and it's the main problem I get with comedian-led nights is some comedians will just book the night to give themselves stage time. They maybe want to get time hosting, or they want to get time headlining, so they run their own night to do it, and that just doesn't work. It can work if you're a great host, or it can work if it's like you put the effort into the night, but if their sole primary focus of running their night is to get stage time for themselves, it's not going to work. It just becomes a friends club, and they play to the same 10 people every week.
Yeah. What do you mean by like a friends club?
Well, it's kind of like you go to a lot of like these smaller, like the small open mic nights, and like they're held in like bars or like wee side rooms of pubs, and it's comedians playing to comedians or their friends. You know what I mean? It's just they're not actually getting what I'd consider to be an audience in. They're just playing to their peers, which is good in a way, but for me it's not great, because that's not a night. It's almost like a training class, isn't it? You know what I mean?
It's a writing workshop.
Yeah. They're just like, they're playing to their mates, and you're kind of like, it's great and all, but it's not moving the wheels for them. They're not realistically going to get better, because they're not getting realistic reactions. They're getting fake reactions from friends, or they're getting no reactions from friends. You need to perform in front of a real audience to get a real feel of like progression, and know what if your bits are hitting or if they're not hitting. Because I think sometimes comedians are the worst audience in the world.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
If someone tried to bring over a London or an American-centric thing to Glasgow, what happened? So in America, there's loads of bringer nights where you pay. No, not bringer nights, where you have to pay to play. A lot of that, and there's 2 drink minimum. And then with the London thing, tons of bringers. What would likely happen if someone said, "Listen, my name's Bobby Carrot Fisher. I'm going to run some bringer nights and pay to play nights"? What would happen?
I think like in Glasgow, we thankfully haven't got to that stage in Glasgow. There's no night that really runs like that, and I think if it was, I don't think it would last in the scene. You know what I mean? Glasgow and Scotland's quite quick to call out stuff in the scene. Well, if the comedians in the community is not happy with it, they'll let you know. And to me, like, it goes against my whole thing about it of, obviously we don't charge, so like having someone pay me to come and play here, or like they have to bring X amount of people. Like when we went to LA and I went to the Comedy Store to watch like the roast battle show for Jack, and it was like a 2 drink minimum on the table. So I'm sitting at my seat and all, and the woman's like, "Oh, it's a 2 drink minimum, do you?" And I was like, "Well, I don't actually drink." So I'm like, I don't drink alcohol. And she goes, "Oh, well, it can be soft drinks." And I goes, "Okay, I'll just take 2 soft drinks." And you're like, I would have had the 2 drinks because it was a 2-hour show. But the fact, like, see, it goes back to that journey thing. By putting that in there, saying it's a 2 drink minimum, puts me in a bad mood. Doesn't put me in a bad mood, but it's like, no, that's okay. Now, I would have had the 2 drinks, and I would say most people will have 2 drinks at a show. In Glasgow, they'll probably have 4. But in putting that on someone to have, it puts a negative in your head straight away, and it goes back to that journey of the show starts before the show starts.
You're being treated like a product rather than a person.
Yeah, 100%.
It's definitely America's a great country. There's a lot of great things, but they are complete capitalists. There is not. I sometimes I don't think there's a human bone in their body with the way they
No.
operate.
And like it was weird. It was such a weird experience going to like the Comedy Store and like the Improv and stuff, and it's like places that you've been aware of and all the history and everything. But it's like, yeah, there's strange rooms, and there was a few things that I got from it that were like class, but there's other parts of it you're like, that just would not slide in the UK or like Scotland or something. Like people would kick off. Like even though they do those weird things with your phones, you know, where they put your phones in the wee holders and all that. And someone was like asking me, he's like, "Oh, would you get that for Glasgow?" And I was like, "No." I goes, people would lose their mind if they couldn't get to their phone. And it doesn't like really bother. Like we have an announcement and we do like our show rules and all that, and it's like we don't mind someone taking a photo. We'll stop them taking a video, and we'll stop them and we say no flash photography because it can be off-putting or whatever. But no one really takes the mick out of it.
No.
And I just like I found it weird. Like so I was in LA for a week. I think we went for a week. 2 nights in the Comedy Store, but I couldn't get a photo in the Comedy Store. And you're like, oh, can't get a photo, I can't get a picture inside. And you're like, that's a bit weird, you know what I mean? It's like just like for your memories or whatever. Like, and obviously Jack and stuff, he got his photos because they had their professional photographer and all that, but it's that strange way of like, oh, you can't actually take a picture inside. A bit like holy grail, like they're kind of like, oh no, you can't do this. It's another like off-putting thing to you.
Definitely. It's the one thing that is interesting. Their system is they put the opener as the host, and they're not even the best act. But in here, we put the. I mean, it's an underrated skill, but a good host is so important. But they don't even bother with that.
Yeah, I think like yeah, the host in Scotland is tremendous, you know, and it's like if you've not, you could have the best headliner in the world. See if your host is terrible, the show's going to be terrible. Because there's, as I say, the Glasgow crowd can be lively, you know. So it's that the host is, yes, they've got to be funny and they've got to do all that sort of stuff, but it's the crowd management and the maintenance of the crowd and getting them set between each little act and getting them ready for the show. It's such an important job.
Yeah, exactly. It's what have you? Did you before you took over Blackfriars? Did you have some preconceptions on comedians and like how and the comedy scene, and then how did that change?
It's weird because I would go to shows and stuff. Like I would have gone to like the Stand in Glasgow or like the Monkey Ball when I lived in Edinburgh, and I kind of had seen comedy as a consumer, and then all like the stuff that you would see on the TV and stuff like that, the panel shows or whatever. And I think like the weirdest thing I kind of found, and it's like where I probably would have been really naive. And I remember watching comedy in here for the first time and watching the same, like we did like a Friday, Saturday, and you see the act do the same set both times. And you're like, oh, you did that last night. And then you're like chatting to people and they're like, yeah, they do that, Chris, man. They'll do that for like a year. I'm like, what? And it's like, that's then I suppose the good side, because then you see them as they progress that 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and you've seen it at the start, and then you see them once they've got it like properly nailed down. And you can see the journey they've had to get there, where they just tighten things up or changed a little phrase or changed a head movement or whatever to just make it funnier. And it's like I suppose it's that naivety of like people that I suppose it's the bit that probably for some people it makes it magical, where they just think that the comedian's saying that on stage. Like that's the first time they've ever said that. It's just come into their brain and they've just said it, you know what I mean? And people are like, oh, how did they come up with that? And you're like, well, they've been writing it for the past year.
What but you've seen a few monologues as well, though, I bet. Like you've seen cases where they've done it where they've gotten tired of material, and then it's that you've seen the flip side of that, right?
Yeah, so Raymond Mearns, who does his stuff here, he's just like a whole different level of comedian, different level of beast, you know. He was doing one of Stuart Mitchell and Friends shows, so I think he was doing like a 25-minute spot, and he gets up and you never know what Raymond's going to say. I couldn't tell you what his set's going to be. From even that day, he did like 3 sets that day where they'd done 3 different shows, and he gets up and there's a guy in the front row and he asks him what he does, and the guy says he builds saunas in people's houses. And then Raymond does 25 minutes on saunas. And you're like, and he comes off, and then we're sitting in between the 2 shows, and I went, I didn't realise you had so much material on saunas. And he went, me neither. That's mental, wasn't it? And I was just like, He's one of those rare breeds where he can just riff off of stuff and just go. It's like 25 minutes fully on saw in his eyes, like my mind was blown.
Did he put any of that in his tour set after he did that?
I've seen him because he's obviously just been away at the Fringe, so he's kind of just back like, last weekend or whatever. And I was chatting to him, and I was like, oh, didn't your sauna stuff make it? Or like, what have you kept? What was your thing? And he went, no. He goes, I'll never do that again. Like Raymond's quite like he can just blast something. He's heavily doing these crowd work shows, like Live and Unleashed, he calls it, and it's each one's completely different, and it will be probably the only time he does it.
Okay.
He's just such like a, he's just a storyteller, like a kind of riff guy. I think he says it's very rare that something in that set will become part of his big show.
Okay, bloody hell. So, would you say he's one of the comedy stalwarts of Glasgow?
Yeah, he's like kind of, he's been doing it, how long's Raymond been doing it? I think about 30 odd years or something maybe. And he's just one of those, he's just a real like historian of the scene. He knows so much about it. He's got so much knowledge base, and a really friendly guy and he's great with someone like me. Like I'm 3 years into this, you know what I mean? He's great with me in terms of like helping me with stuff, teaching me things, giving me like advice on stuff to do with the club or like comedians or shows. And then, but he's the same with like the young open spots or like the 5 minutes if they're on the bill with him. You know what I mean? He'll chat to them and he'll give them feedback, and he'll sometimes be harsh, but sometimes he'll be fair. You know what I mean? And it's just he's just doing it to help them out, and he'll spend time with people, which I think's great. And I think he says it's because people did it with him. You know what I mean? The guys back in the day did it with him, and they gave him time, so he gives that time to other people as well.
Yeah, of course. It's surprising the time that some of the big names give comics, because I know that I'm not too sure if in other industries they would ever do that. Acting or definitely, I don't think they would.
Yeah, and I think it's that because I suppose they don't see a lot of each other. You know what I mean? It's a very lonely job, I suppose, and then they all kind of get chucked together in a green room, or they're on a car share together, or whatever, or they're sitting in between shows. So it's like that kind of they all just. It's like that awkward moment when you're sat in a room with people that you kind of know but don't really know. So you all just chat about the one thing that you know, and for them it's comedy. So it's kind of giving them the feedback. And I think, like the guy who does my sound, Fudgy, they all sit and chat to him, and it's like from where he started in terms of like he done 5 minutes in here before I gave him a job, and it was a very new 5 minutes. You know what I mean? You could tell he had just started, and he's to where he is now because he has all this advice from likes of Stuart Mitchell, likes of Raymond Mearns, all these guys that are just giving him like feedback on a weekly basis is great for him.
Okay. And what makes you passionate about comedians and comedy? Like, you've got so many things. You mentioned something about before that you run about 15 venues, hospitality, music. What makes you, because you've got so many things going on in the running successfully, what makes you so passionate about putting on a great comedy show and helping comedians better themselves and supporting comedians even on their fringe run?
Yeah, so I think like for me, my biggest part of my career before I started owning my businesses was like nightclubs and running nightclubs and all that and all the DJ stuff. So that was kind of like I was really driven on all that side of things. And I'm now 41, and that whole industry just makes me want to curl up and go to my bed. You know what I mean? That's far too late at night, you know? And so now it's like with the comedians, it's kind of seeing their, like, especially with someone like Fudgy, it's seeing their growth and seeing their journey. And as I say, we're like a venue that's 130 capacity. So I'm trying to catch them at that little finite point where they're kind of becoming up on the scene and they're getting bigger and better before they go off and they then start doing theatres, you know, and doing like the big rooms and everything. So it's kind of seeing their journey come through from the starting point to the point where they're then going off and doing these big shows, they're doing tour shows, or like with Jack, they're going and doing their own fringe run and everything, or like going out to LA to do like his roast battle stuff. It's seeing the development of people, I think, is the main thing. And then it's just the best thing we can do in life. Life's terrible, and 9 times out of 10 in life for everybody, there's hardships, cost of living, there's wars, there's everything. If you can come into a room for 2 hours and kind of laugh, it kind of makes all that stuff kind of go away. You know what I mean? It's a nice environment. It's a nice thing for people to just forget what's going on in the outside world. They can come into a little basement in Glasgow and laugh about something and just enjoy themselves.
Yeah. I agree wholeheartedly with that. There's a couple of times, even at my small shows, where there was one guy who had cancer and was about to die, and
Yeah.
he actually ended up being a funny person in the audience, but people didn't know about it. He was in pain when they were interacting because he was acting so awkwardly. And then the lady came up to me and said, "Thank you guys for putting this show on. He hasn't got long left to live, and even though he didn't show it, he was really happy to be here, and you really made his day." And when you hear that, part of you cries a little bit.
Yeah, it's about you. Yeah, you don't know what any person's got going on in their life when they come and sit in a seat. If you can make them laugh, if the comedians can make them laugh for like that hour and a half, 2 hours, and it gives them a bit of joy, it gives people a little bit of fun, a little bit of respite, that's great. And it's just seeing that. Back in the day, for me, it would have been the crowd in the nightclub dancing and the whole place, like jumping in unison and dancing in unison and stuff. That would have been the buzz. Whereas now I spend most of my, like, our sound tech positions to the like side of the room, kind of looking diagonally to the stage. I'll spend most of my time watching the audience with my eye line kind of going towards them as opposed to going to the stage, because it's the reaction of people that is the determining factor on whether the comedian's doing well. Like, I can watch the comedian and have my opinion on it and what I think of it, but then that's got my own personal taste on it. Whereas if I can see 130 people and they're all having a good time and laughing, then I know the comedian's doing well. And it's not just my opinion that they're doing well. It's like the audience reaction is, well, everyone says this person's great. This person's great.
There's part of you get a bit. Oh, I have to put them on. Even though I'm sure there's occasions where you're like so much, bloody hell, this isn't for me. But they bloody like them.
There's a few comedians that, I don't personally find funny. But I just don't get the style. I don't like whoever they are. I just don't get the style now. But if they shift tickets for promoters, they shift tickets for me. They're a ticket shifter. I'll have them on stage. You know what I mean? But yeah, and I think I like anyone that's involved in comedy and someone that's like doing, like I say, we're doing 50 odd shows a month. It can get tiresome sometimes, yeah.
How do you get on top of it all? Because I know acts notoriously can be flaky. They'll cancel last minute. All sorts happen in all those 50 shows.
Yeah, I think like a hard time for us is always like the fringe. So we still, our shows in August drop dramatically because everyone's in Edinburgh. So I think we go from 50 to 20, and one of our acts was supposed to play. It was supposed to headline it's like our new YouTube series, Just One More Gong, which is the combination of a gong show and a panel show, and smoke machines and basically chaos. And the headliner pulled out the morning of the show. Now, it was not their fault. They had filming stuff that they had to do. Thankfully, in Scotland and Glasgow, there's a big community. You know what I mean? I think I sent a few messages. We had a headliner straight away. So there's always somebody there that can do it. It's just a shame for like if ticket holders have bought it specifically for that person, but you always get away with the tagline of subject line up to change. You know what I mean? always just stick that in every show.
Have you had anyone say, "I came here for this act. I can't believe you didn't put him on"?
No, I don't think I think we've very rarely had pullouts, which I think is great. We kicked somebody out before a show, and it was a Tom Stade show. Tom Stade was doing like his hour, like he was doing a work in progress, and he had a warm up act. So he had brought a warm up act on, and then was doing 15 minutes, and then they were going to take a little 5-minute break, reset the room, let people go to the bathroom. And then Tom was coming on, and Tom, I think it sold out in like half a day. Tom Stade's obviously massive up here, and there was a guy sat right in the front row and was just effing and blinding at the comedian that was doing the opener. So like I went and spoke to Tom about it. I went, look, he's just been cussing this like young kid out, like, and Tom's like, kick him out, don't want him at my show. And I was like, 100% right. So I went and spoke to the guy, I was like, you need to go. And he was sat upstairs in the bar crying.
What?
Like the customer. And I was like, what are you crying about? And he's like, I really wanted to see Tom, that's why I bought tickets. And I goes, well, you just told that other comic to F off, and you're like horrendous stuff, not just heckling, he was just being a real, like a dick. I goes, why do you think you deserve to be sat down there? And he's like, oh, but I bought my ticket. And I was like, well, it's not going to happen, mate. I goes, you're done. And I was like, tears not coming. I was like, oh my God. He's like, but I really want to see Tom. And I was like, you're going to have to book another ticket for another day, mate, because this ain't happening.
That's so...
The guy obviously didn't realise his behaviour was going to cause that action. You're like, where do you think you can go away and tell someone to do, like, F off or whatever? And like, it wasn't just like a simple, like, one line. It was a tirade of abuse, and thought he could stay in the show. And you're like, what did you expect?
Now, with all the people that you get into comedy and all the great comics and great people there, what advice that you'd like to give to comics? Because I know that I interviewed a comedy promoter in Cambridge, Big Deal Comedy, and she gave a great bit of advice. She said that with a lot of comics, when they're sending videos, a lot of them are too long in that to get to the joke. Like, there's like 30 minutes of the MC introducing them, then there's 10 seconds of them fiddling with the mic, and then it's like 1 minute and 10 before they get to a joke. And by that time, she's bored if she stays long enough for that. And that's a big mistake. It just, like, get to the jokes and funny bits straight away. What do you think is your advice for, like, acts wanting to break into your comedy club or break into Glasgow?
Just touching on what that promoter said, you know, like when we did the review when we were doing the award for Brass Tacks Comedy, Katie asked me to, like, look at all the submissions. She said, you only need to look at my top 10, Chris. But she sent me all 30. And I goes, well, I'm going to look at all 30. And I can see what that promoter's saying, because some of them had sent clips that were, they're all comedians I knew, and I'm like, that's not even their funniest bit. So I think if you are sending something, make sure it's your best bit, you know what I mean? It's like, and it's not the bit that you think's best. Everyone thinks they know their funniest joke. Do the joke that gets the biggest reaction in the room. And it's like, you're not burning your clip by sending it to someone who's giving you an award, because it's not going anywhere. But I think in terms of, like, if a new comic coming out, I think it's really simple. It's like, it's how I kind of treat life. It's about respect, and it's about being kind to the people and everything and all that side of stuff. If you're respectful to the people that are ahead of you, you're polite, you only, like, the biggest no-no for me is when you see, I go into our green room, which is kind of getting done up at the moment, but you go in and there's acts in there that aren't on the show. And you're like, what are you doing? And they're like, I'm just hanging out. And I'm like, yeah, you're not on tonight's bill, get out. Like, they're at their work. You know what I mean? They're getting ready to go on stage. And there's a lot of unwritten rules in comedy, I think, about things like that, and being respectful, or if you are coming to an open mic night or a new material night or a free night, like, and you come down and then you do your set, then leave, like, that's a no-no. Like, there was a comedian in here doing fresh comedy, and he came with, and he brought a good host of his mates. There was about 6 of them. He sat in the front row. He was on first, and then he left and took the front row with him. And I was like, there was a young comedian, Pierce Higgins, was stood next to me. I was doing the sound front. I goes, can you do the desk? And he went, I've done it before. And I was like, get on that. And I went into the corridor, and I goes, where are you going? He's like, I've done my set. And I went, yeah. He goes, but all the other comedians came and watched your set. I goes, and you've now taken the front row out. I goes, are you going to do another show? I goes, because, like, if someone's got another show or something, totally understandable. They can be, like, doubling up or whatever, fair dues. He's like, no, I'm off for the night out. I was like, dude, that's, like, the most unrespectful, like, disrespectful thing you've ever done. And he's like, this is going to affect me getting shows. And I goes, you won't play here again. I think it's just, like, it's disrespectful to the host that's given them the opportunity, and the booker that's given them the opportunity. And it's disrespectful to all the other acts, innit? You know what I mean? You've killed that crowd. And it was obvious because it was the front row. If you'd planned to do it, sit your mates in the back row.
Yeah, it makes no difference, but to do it, yeah.
And I think it's just respect and listening to people. And I posted, like, I've just posted in the comedy forum the other day about the Glasgow Comedy Festival. It's just kind of saying, look, these are the dates. We're going to have some dates available if you want to be considered. Submit what your show is, blah, 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 all that stuff. Send me a clip, and we'll look at, see if we've got a slot for you. We can get you in for your show. And I always put my email. I'm like, email me, because that's where I deal with everything. And I'm like, don't send me a Facebook message, don't send me this, don't send me on Instagram. And I think I've had about 6 or 7 acts pinged me a Facebook message. Now, I don't read my Facebook. I don't have Messenger app on my phone anymore. You know what I mean? I'm like, how can they not like read what someone asks you? If you're being asked to submit something,
Okay, yeah,
follow
yeah,
the
yeah.
rules. You know what I mean? If someone said send me an email, send an email.
One thing I want to ask him that you see with the guy that brought his mates in and like left, what could he have done instead if he was in that situation to rectify it? What would he have done as he's spoken to you there? What do you think he could have done?
So we spoke out in the corridor, so we were out of the room and all that. I think to save himself, if he'd come back into the show and sat down in the back row, there would have been a lot less ill feeling towards it. You know what I mean? He would have saved a bit of face. But at that stage, I was hot headed. I was like, out you go, you're done almost. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay, okay.
Because it's like it's just. I also forget sometimes we're dealing with like 18, 19-year-old kids. You know what I mean? That maybe don't understand the ways of the world and don't understand the ways of respect or haven't learned these various rules that exist around comedy that aren't really written down anywhere, which is probably a problem. You know what I mean? No one's ever written them down. It's just something you're supposed to learn and supposed to know, but yeah, it's just not the right thing to do, is it? You just if you've been invited to do a show, stay and watch the rest of the acts, and also you'll learn something as well. You know what I mean? It's not just for the benefit of making the audience look bigger. You might see something that another act does, not in terms of their joke, but how they hold the mic or their presence or how they kind of interact with the audience. You might learn something. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And you might also meet the headliner might want to chat to you. They might have an opportunity for you. Someone else might have an opportunity for you that you've just missed out on because you've left.
yeah. They might like your set, and they may, yeah, you may, yeah,
Because it's at the end of the day, it's all networking, isn't it? You know what I mean? I think especially in Scotland, that's probably where comedians are bad at. It's the one thing when we were out in America, that's what they were very, very good at. is they're constantly networking. It's constantly they're always scanning for the next biggest person in the room. They could be chatting to you, but Joe such and such walks in, and it's like, oh, they're more important. I'll go and speak to them.
yeah. But what's the one thing that I've seen the flip side of that is people go in and they'll go in straight away asking you, "What can you do for me?" Like they go and try and they don't even have a conversation with you. When they network, they just try and get information out of you straight away. What do you make of? I've seen people do it, but like if someone treats you as a person first and they ask for something, you don't mind. But if they go straight away for you like an object, it gets you on the wrong side straight away. No.
Yeah, I think I don't I always book. I'm booking our festival this year, and I book my promoters that then will book my shows and my lineups, and then I book one show, which is at the moment our Just One More Gong series that were put out on the YouTube channel and everything, and kind of panel and thing, and like a gong aspect to it as well. So I only really book one, but I will constantly get it if I'm out and about or if I'm at shows and someone's like, "Oh, get me a headliner, get me this, about this," and it's like it leaves us how it is because obviously I'll speak to the promoters and they'll ask me, "Oh, I'm thinking about this person, thinking about that." But if someone's like constantly hassling me, and I'm like, I'll tell them, I'll be like, "Look, I don't book that show." I deal with the promoter and stuff, but I'm not the guy you want to speak to. Here's the best way to get in contact with them. But if they're pushing and they're just wanting they're wanting that next slot, that next run up the ladder. I'm not gonna if they're hassling me for it, they're not gonna get pushed on to the promoter. I'm not gonna give them a positive advice. And it's also the ones that will want to do people that want to run before they can walk is the problem.
Ah, definitely.
You know what I mean? You've got to earn your stripes, you've got to do your 5 minutes, you've got to do your open mics, you've got to learn the trade. Whereas especially like around the comedy festival, you can get the Glasgow one, you get what I personally will call like a fake sellout. Because I could sell out someone could sell out an entire room because they're from Glasgow. And they've got their friends come, their family come, and then that gives them ideas and they want to then do a fringe run. And you're like, whoa, no, you're not ready for that. And you also, they're not ready for it. That's not like a detrimental thing. You don't, because that would affect them. You know what I mean? It's like you don't want to make you only get one shot at your first fringe, so you want it to be your best one. You don't want them going half cocked and not ready to do it because they've not got a great hour yet. So it's trying to slow people down and comedians down, I think, is the Some of them will fly and will do really well and fly through it faster than others. But there's other ones you need to kind of just slow them down and say, look, do your 5 minutes, get up to your 10 minutes, do loads of club spots. But I think now, geez, because of the likes of this, like YouTube and all this and everything, people are just knocking out specials left, right, and centre. Whereas back in the day, a special was a special.
Yeah. Not everyone is Dan Tiernan.
Yeah.
He's
100%.
Who breaks the rules in that regard. Like he's I think he's only been doing it for like 4 or 5 years or 3 years, and I went to the Fringe a couple of years ago. He was in the top 3 best acts I saw at the Fringe by far.
Yeah, well, we've got a young girl up here, Kim Blythe, and it was actually Katie Palmer was promoting her show at the festival. Now she came into comedy instead of going this way, she came in this way. She was an Instagram person doing like Instagram sketches and clips and stuff, and I think that was her first hour at the Fringe, and it was tremendous. It was a great show, absolutely smashed it, and she's just one of these people that's just naturally funny. And she came at it, so people will look. Some comedians will look and goes, "Oh, well, Kim done that. Why can't I do that?" And you're like, there's exceptions to the rule.
Yes, and put them in the same room, and then they'll see.
It's like, she's done shows here, and she's one of the ones that I know if she's doing like a solo show in here, it's sold out in a day. You know, so it's just she's got a really good audience. She's just a flying machine.
What is it that makes her special? Is it the fact that she's got so many stories? Is it a stage presence? Is it a joke craft? Is it a personality? What is it that do you think?
I think it's like she's like a really warm sort of personality, but she's just got that Glaswegian style of like, she tells you a story and it will seem like it's meandering on, but it'll come to this like really big punchline at the end, and it's like I just think it's that thing that Scottish people can kind of have, where they're just natural storytellers, and just the way they say something will just be hilarious, and it'll come to like, she just has a really good, like, she's young, you know what I mean? She's got a great like fresh take on a lot of stuff that's kind of happening at the moment, and yeah, it's just a naturally funny person, and just really like she's really warm on stage, you know what I mean? She's a very very likable character.
And it is funny with likability how much it can work. Like Siobhan Dodd in London, if you ever, like as an MC, as a host, she's just one of the best I've ever seen. She's just got instant likability, her energy. She just makes it look so effortless. When I try and do the MCing bit, my God, it takes so much work out of me. But with her, whoa, yeah. She just has something about her. Oof.
Yeah. Well, it's like Jack that we sponsored at the Fringe. I sponsored for the Fringe. So Jack's this like mad firebrand, like very off the wall style comic. He'll start over here and he ends up over here. And at this year's Glasgow Comedy Festival in March, it'd been announced that we were sponsoring him. And he obviously does the roast battle. And he was supposed to headline a roast battle in here against Ryan Cullen. They're like the 2 big ones in the UK. And the whole show was built around him. Jack phoned in sick. Doesn't do the show. So he comes in the next day, and he was doing a show the next morning because it was a comedy festival, and it was a show called Freed Up, and it was a comedy afternoon for people that abstain from alcohol and drugs and stuff with a charity. It was maybe like 20 people in the audience. It was quite poorly attended. And Jack comes up and he's like, Katie from Barstack and messaged me saying, you need to have a word with him. He needs to pull his socks up, Chris. That's not good enough. That whole show was built around him. I was like, I'll have a word with him. So he comes in, he's all apologetic. And then he goes up, he goes, right, I'm MCing today. He's like, I'll just go up and get the crowd warmed up here and that. I was like, on you go, Jack. And there's an Asian guy in the audience. Jack asks where he's from, says this part of China. And Jack immediately just flips into speaking Mandarin to him. And I've been aware that Jack can speak Mandarin, but completely forgot at this stage. And then does the entire gig where he delivers jokes and all that, and hits the guy with the punchline first in Mandarin. And I was like, I can't stay mad at this guy. He's just so likable. He'd studied it and he'd gone out there for I think he'd lived out there for like a year or something. So he's just like fluent in it. And I was just like, this is ridiculous. I was like, I'm going to stay mad at you. Some people are just really likable, you know what I mean? As much as they can annoy you, but when you put them on stage, yeah.
Whoa, he's fluent in Mandarin after a year as well. Bloody hell.
Yeah, I studied it a bit at uni and stuff as well. Oh, I can't remember when he went out. Years ago, maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. I think it was just pre-COVID. Must have been. Yeah, 'cause he's 26.
Whoa, what a talented guy.
Yeah. And it does not look like a guy that can speak Mandarin.
No, he doesn't. He definitely doesn't. I see the pictures. Whoa.
Yeah. He's a very Scottish looking fella.
Uh, Now, how would you, for anyone that's not seen someone from Scotland before and they're all the way in Africa or in Asia, how would you describe what a typical Scotsman looks like?
Well, with Jack, it's a big ginger mullet. So, generally shockingly red hair and very white skin. Almost translucent.
There we go, guys. If you haven't seen,
Yeah, we don't get much sun up here, you know what I mean? I think we've had our 1 week this year, so that's us back into winter now.
well, would you like some of the London weather?
Nah, I don't deal well with the heat and the closeness of a city. Like, see, something like that. Oh, as much as I enjoy a wee trip down to London, yeah, not for full time living at all.
Now, for anyone that's listening right now, and if they're a comic that maybe wants to perform in Blackfriars, or if they want to come by to Glasgow, how do they find out about you?
So, best way to do is our Instagram is Blackfriars_pub_Glasgow is the Instagram. You'll see all the stuff on there. Drop it. It's got like the link tree and everything for like booking inquiries. Or if you just message the page, my team there will hand out my email to people to get in contact. And that's kind of the best. Instagram's always the best place to get us.
Okay. Well, guys, you know where to go if you want to get into Blackfriars. And you know where to go if you want to get in contact with Chris. I hope you've enjoyed the episode. Make sure you give this episode a 5-star review on Amazon, iTunes, or Spotify. And join the Patreon if you're interested. But also, our next guest is likely, we got some interesting guests. We're going to get hopefully, get a former member of the Crips in, a musical comic, and get some more clowns in. And I'll see you guys soon.